Welcome into the Odds and Audibles podcast. I'm Matt Prehm, Jared Mack on the show, and it's a special two for a day for your podcast on Tuesday because the College Football Playoff Committee has released its first edition of the rankings, and we need to talk about it because the Oregon Ducks have received a much more favorable ranking than I think most of the country was anticipating, and we need to discuss it. First rankings are out. And Jared, it goes Georgia number one, no surprise there. Alabama number two, a little bit of a surprise on that one. Michigan State number three, and then the Oregon Ducks. They are fourth in the college football playoff rankings. Ohio State five, Cincinnati six, Michigan seven, Oklahoma eight, Wake Forest nine, Notre Dame 10. We should note Fresno State made the top 25, checking in the 25 to 20 range.
23.
23, yeah. That gives 2 wins over college football playoff teams for Oregon. I'm surprised, and I'm that the committee came out and said head-to-head matters.
Yeah, head-to-head mattered 4 times in the college football playoff rankings. Most significantly, obviously, Oregon over Ohio State. Oregon is 7th in the AP poll, so this is a 3-spot jump. This is I was genuinely surprised at this. I anticipated Oregon to be on the outside of the top 4, looking in probably around 5 to 6. It really depended where the selection committee, decided to place Cincinnati. And Cincinnati ends up falling to 6, which I thought was surprising because right now in the AP poll, they're sitting second. So this is very interesting. The selection committee clearly has head-to-heads matter and the eye test matters because undefeated Oklahoma is now 8th in the country according to the selection committee. That was the first moment where, my eyes really opened up because I thought that was arguably the biggest surprise of the night. I think Oregon being at 4 is the second biggest surprise, at least in my eyes. But Oklahoma falling that much is interesting. But as of today, if the season ended, Oregon would be in the playoffs. So what that tells us is that what we've been saying for a while now is that they control their own destiny. So if they win out and they finish 11-1, 12-1 with a conference title win, they should be firmly entrenched in the playoffs because Michigan State, Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, they all play really meaningful games down the stretch. And the idea right now is that Georgia and Alabama would meet in the SEC championship game. Michigan State still has to play Ohio State in 2 weeks. Michigan and Ohio State still have to play. Michigan is 7th. So this is going to be pandemonium down the stretch, I have to say. But when you look at the schedules that all these teams have to face, I think Cincinnati's is probably the most favorable, but Oregon might be the second most favorable, just purely based off of rankings and the competition of play down the stretch.
It's amazing. Look, these rankings will mean nothing next week because a new batch will come out. But Oregon, like you said, is in a much better position than any of us could have imagined. I think you and I and Eric Scopel, we were talking in our Slack channel leading up to the show that we were kind of expecting Oregon to be behind Ohio State, Oregon maybe to check in at maybe 5 at best, more likely 6. Possibly 7, and here you are seeing them at number 4, and you're right. They went out. They are in it because if Georgia is as good as we think they are, and Alabama is as susceptible as they've ever been in the last 6 or 7, 8 years, if we think that, Georgia should beat Alabama, which would eliminate Bama from the playoff discussion. And we still have to see Michigan State play Ohio State. One of those teams could lose and drop out. We still have to see Ohio State take on Michigan. And if it's Michigan winning that game, Ohio State drops out. And it's a scenario now where it sets up where it's truly you win and you're in. And after the Stanford game, even with the understanding that Joe Moorhead wasn't available because of the emergency surgery, even though the injuries have mounted up, I don't think any of us really kind of put that thought that the playoffs are on the table anymore for this Oregon team. And yet here they are. They've been placed back on. It's almost like Oregon has been given a second life in a video game. And here you go. Don't waste it because you're still in the hunt.
Yeah, well, I do kind of wonder how much the selection committee took into account of Joe Moorhead's absence against Stanford, because since he's come back, Oregon's offense has looked extremely different. And I was a little worried at first when I saw Oklahoma fall to 8, because it seemed like the committee really took the eye test, to heart. Like they really bought into how a team performs against weaker competitions. And that's kind of been an issue with Oregon at points this year, like not being able to put away Arizona, winning by 3 against Cal. Obviously losing to Stanford, who's just a lesser team. They only have 3 wins on the season, but I think they probably took into great account how influential Joe Moorhead is on this offense.
Yes.
And I agree with your metaphor, Matt, about how Oregon now kind of has a second life. Because just like you were saying in our Slack chat, we didn't anticipate Oregon being in the playoffs in the first rankings. I didn't, certainly. And that's not to say I didn't think Oregon could get there. I think we've been talking about it for a while now, that Oregon still controls their own fate. And if they win out, that's going to be a really hard discussion. And the discussion we've been having is how much do head-to-heads matter?
Yes.
And very clearly they matter. So, and that's going to be huge for Oregon going forward. Obviously, Ohio State has more juice in their schedule because they will be playing, 2 more top 10 teams. And if they come victorious, then that's going to be something else. I don't know what'll happen in that case. But for right now, the season ends, Oregon's in the playoffs.
If the playoffs were to start right now, the Ducks, I believe, would go to probably the Orange Bowl and would be playing against Georgia, the team that Oregon opened the 2020 football season against. That's an interesting storyline. We've already seen a projected. These are kind of funny, but we've already kind of seen
The lines.
mock bet line if these teams ended up playing each other. And Georgia is a 15-point favorite, which feels about right, and which was right around where Oregon was at going into the Ohio State game. A committee chair member has said that was asked about Oregon's ranking, and the quote is, "They beat Ohio State at Ohio State, and that was really important to the committee. Since that time, they, OSU, are on a roll." So what this tells us is style head-to-head matters, but it also looks like style points matter, because when you look at Oklahoma at number 8 and being undefeated, when you look at Wake Forest being number 9 and being undefeated, and the teams that they're playing, when you look at the fact that Cincinnati is at 6 in this ranking and they have struggled to beat one-win teams in back-to-back weeks, it matters who you play and who you beat, and if you're going head-to-head for these rankings. But it's also maybe almost equally as important, just maybe slightly below it, of how you look. And this sets the table for the month of November for Oregon's final 4 games of the season, that they have to look good and they have to win. And to stay in the rankings, they're probably going to have to look good doing it too. They cannot have another Arizona performance where they are a 30-point favorite. And they're not going to have another game of that magnitude.
Right.
But they can't go into games being a 14-point favorite and win by 3.
No, I think for the rest of the season, obviously Oregon has to win every game, but I think I said this on our podcast on Monday, where Oregon has to win every game convincingly. And it starts this weekend against Washington. I think this has added another layer to this game. Not only is it a great rivalry, one of the best in the country that isn't talked about enough, but we had Jimmy Lake's comments on it was yesterday, so it was Monday, about the academic prowess schools. We had that noise going on, and now there's even more outside noise considering the fact that Oregon is now in the college football playoffs. Um, so this is another eye test game. I think this is an opportunity for Oregon on national television on ABC to remind everybody as to why they are number 4 overall and why they were placed above Ohio State and why Cincinnati remains behind them. So moving forward, this is going to be the primary storyline when it comes to any Oregon game. And I think that's going to be important. I think that Mario Cristobal is well aware of this, and I think that he's going to get his team ready.
Yep.
We've media today. We talked to a couple players, and when asked about the college football playoffs, they kind of shrugged it off in terms of what the rankings are, and most of them went to their, we just have to be 1-0 every week, typical line. But I do think that that's the mentality of the program. I think they deserve to celebrate it because it's an important achievement for this program, and moving forward, it'll be even more important. But it's that 1-0 mentality again starts this week against Washington. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform on Saturday. But after this and the Jimmy Lake comments, I think they'll come out on fire.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this game plays out. There's a lot more pressure now added to it, and Oregon's target just got bigger on its back because, look, Washington would love nothing more than to beat their rival, but to also put to bed any kind of discussion or hope of a college football playoff appearance for the second time in school history, to become the first school in the Pac-12 to make the college football playoffs for a second time in this existence of its current setup. So this game just got bigger. Eyeballs will be on this team. Look, the Oregon's going to be scrutinized. If you're a Duck fan and you're going to pop onto Twitter or you're going to read something other than duckterritory.com, you are going to see a lot of criticism of Oregon being at number 4 in this ranking. You are going to see a lot of people be upset about this and get used to it because it is a little controversial, but I dig it. I like the fact that they are putting head-to-head and eye test combined into the formula for creating these rankings, and it's going to create a situation, like we've said now, that Oregon needs to win, and they need to look good doing it, unless they want to be passed up by other teams.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say on that. I do have a question for you, Matt. What was your biggest surprise, I guess, other than Oregon on this top 25?
Probably Oklahoma at number 8. I was thinking the Sooners would probably be more like 5, maybe 6. I know they haven't played very well. They've been up and down. But
Right.
The fact that they're undefeated, they're a big name team. They seem to be trending up now that they've got Caleb Williams in at quarterback. That feels to me lower. They should be higher than what they are at number 8. I was also surprised that Fresno State checked in at 23. They were not on my radar to be ranked at all. From a negative standpoint, I don't think Iowa or Wisconsin should be in the top 25, and they are 21 and 22. So
that was a little concerning when I saw that happening.
Exactly. I thought when I saw Iowa at 22, Wisconsin at 21, and Minnesota at 20, I was like, there you go. Ohio State's going to be ahead of Oregon.
Right. Yeah, I that was concerning when the first couple of rankings came out. I thought one of the other biggest surprises was Alabama at number 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Personally, I feel as if Alabama is the second best team in the country. I know they lost to Texas A&M, but Texas A&M is a top 15 team now. or I think they're 16, something like that. That was a bit surprising just because I felt as if Michigan State might have earned the actual spot at number 2. Instead, they're number 3. Um, this whole list has been is I think is much different than a lot of people anticipated. Just in general, obviously the Oklahoma drop, uh, Michigan drops to 7 if that's a drop. So they clearly take into account how important like bigger games are, where it's a top 10 matchup, just like how Oregon is in front of Ohio State. But again, this is the very first rankings. I remember a couple of years back, I think one of the very first rankings was 3 SEC teams in the top 4. I think that was 2014 when Oregon made it for the first time, where Mississippi State was number 1 or number 2 overall, and they lost 2 of the 3 final games of the year, and weren't anywhere close to being in the top 4. So this is certainly a moment that is a great achievement for the Ducks team and the program itself. But they're going to have to beat Utah twice in the next couple of months and have to go undefeated for the rest of the season in order to get in. But they now know that if they control their own destiny and they win out, that they should be rightfully so in the college football playoffs. They don't have to guess really anymore. I think like I was saying earlier, the only big mayhem moment might be if Ohio State also goes undefeated and beats Michigan and beats Michigan State and beats Iowa, I presume, in the Big Ten championship game. And then it will be even more interesting. And I don't even know what will happen then, because I certainly did not know what was going to happen tonight.
It's going to do it for us here on the Odds and Audibles podcast. Buckle up, folks, because this is going to be an interesting and exciting November to see this play out. Ducks have 4 games left, win, and they are in the college football playoff. They have 4 regular season games at Washington, at home against Washington State, at Utah, at home against Oregon State. And then if they win those 4, they will be playing in Las Vegas against a team from the Pac-12 South, more than likely Utah, which would be the second time in 3 weeks that they will play. Win that, and they are in the college football playoff for a second time. First school in the Pac-12 to claim that if they can win 5 games in the next 5 weeks. Buckle up. You've been listening to the Odds and Audibles podcast.
Peace.